Let me start by it's a process. It's a skill. Self-love is a skill. What that means, it can be practiced. The more you practice it, the better you are.
Welcome to Go All In Show here on ABC 15. My name is Stant and I'm your host. And today I would love to welcome our special guest here, Jonathan Troen. And welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. So excited to be here.
Thank you. Can I call you John? Or you want me to call you Jonathan?
Most people call me Jonathan, but I will answer to anything you want.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, we discussed a little bit about the correct understanding or maybe deeper thinking of the definition of self-love. So explain with us a little bit what you do and how do you come up with the idea of self-love revolution?
Yeah, so what I do, I help entrepreneurs and others move from a place of self-sabotage to self-love so that you can really begin to enjoy your life, your business, your bank account, all at the same time. Because most of us are our own worst enemies. If you're an entrepreneur, chances are you are your own worst boss. If you had another boss talk to you like you talk to you, you'd quit. Because most of us are really mean to ourselves. So it's a process of moving from being our own worst enemies to our own best friends, or our own worst bosses to the best boss we can be. And how did I come across it? Because I was my own worst enemy. I was, I don't know if we're allowed to say it, I was an asshole, but only to me. No one else would have ever told you I was an asshole. I was a nice guy. But to me, I was an asshole. I was a bully. As an entrepreneur, I was a mean boss. It didn't matter how successful I was. And I was pretty successful on paper. I mean, I lived in Hollywood for 20 years and, I was interviewing the biggest stars in the world. I lived 3 blocks from the beach. I could see the sunset out my window. I had success on paper, but it didn't matter what I did, how successful I was, who I interviewed on whatever day. When I got into my room alone with me, it was just me and my boss, and he wasn't kind. You can do better. It was always better. And it was exhausting. It was exhausting. And I would set goals thinking that once I reached that goal, then I would be happy. And I know a lot of us do this. So, okay, when I get that, I'm going to work really hard. I'm going to struggle and I'm going to achieve that. And then I'll be okay. I'll be happy. So I would set a goal and I'd achieve it. And I'd celebrate and I'd be happy for, I don't know, a day or two or whatever it was. And then it's like, okay, now I got to set another goal because this obviously didn't do what I thought it was going to do. So I set another goal and I did achieve it. Still not happy. And one day I woke up, I said, this doesn't make any sense. I've created the life of my dreams and I am miserable. Like, what is wrong with this picture? So I went off to do the research and to figure out what was really going on with me and what was wrong with me. And that's where I through that research and then practicing what I learned, I created the self-love revolution.
Okay, so this is really hitting me hard too, and probably a lot of people, because to hear from male perspectives say that, you probably when you look into the mirror, how do you feel when you look into the mirror before?
Before it was horrible. Before I would look in the mirror and, well, first of all, I noticed the changes in my face. And, when I was younger, if there was a zit, I'd see that. And as I got older, the gray and the wrinkle. So I'd spend about 5 minutes picking myself apart. And then I'd review the day. Now, every day is a combination of things that go the way you want them to go and things that don't go the way you want them to go. Every single day, right? You have an idea, you want to get all this accomplished, it all doesn't get done. Every single day. Now, some days there's more on the plus side and some days there's more on the, oh man, I wish it would have gone differently. But I would ignore everything that went well and I'd sit there and focus on everything that didn't go well and just beat myself up for it. And if there was nothing that didn't go well, I'd make something up. You know, oh, you interviewed, you know, whoever, you know, the Who, you know, you interviewed the Who. That's a celebration. And I go in my head and go, oh yeah, but you know, you didn't ask that question. You forgot to ask that question, or you asked a question that was stupid or something, right? And like I'd make up stories just to make myself feel bad. I didn't know I was doing it, but that's what I was doing. That's what my self-talk was like back then.
Why did you think that you have that kind of self-talk?
We're taught comparison. We are taught to compare ourselves to every other person on the planet. And it really hit me hard when I had my son, who is 6 years old now. And I remember the day he was born. And of course, it was a joyous day. And then they give us a sheet of paper that says his height and his weight. And next to that, his height, it said his height, and then it had a percentage. Where does he compare to every other person on the planet? In the weight. Percentage. Where does he compare to every other person on the planet? And I'm going, oh my God. This doesn't start in school.
Yeah.
This starts when we're born. And of course, on every 6-month visit, the same thing. And of course, then as parents, we start doing is he okay? Is he in the right percentage? Of course, then we go to school and it's like, well, how do you stack up next to your classmates? And then we go to work and, well, how do you stack up next to your coworkers? And we are a nonstop comparison. And yes, I lived 3 blocks from the beach. I could have my feet in the sand in 10 minutes. And I would do that. I'd see the sun beginning to set and I'd leave my house and I would make my way to the water so I could watch the sunset over the ocean. But on my way there, I'd pass 2nd Street and Ocean Avenue and then the houses that were on the beach. And I would go, oh, well, when I'm in one of those places, then I can be happy. And of course, on my walk back, I'd also see all those houses. And, you know, as a producer and when I was producing TV shows and, you know, as an entrepreneur, when I had my companies, there were other producers that were making more popular shows than I was. There were entrepreneurs that had more money in the bank than I did, or that, when I had my internet music company, we were number 3. There was MTV, Sony, and us, which is pretty good, but we were still number 3. It was nonstop. It was the comparison. So then that voice in your head kept going, well, you know, when I spoke about, you know, making goals that you think will make you happy, it was all about, well, that person is doing that, so I'm going to work hard. And we also hear about modeling, right? That's a big skill that's taught in personal development, model people. And I'm not against it, but it's not the final word either, because then I want to be like that person, and I'm never really like that person. So then there's always a piece of comparison. I think that's where a big part, not all, some of it's just evolutionary, right? We look out for dangers. That's just from evolution. But we also compare ourselves to everybody on the planet. And comparison, it's the death nail to joy. You cannot be joyous when you are in comparison mode.
So you hate the guy in the mirror. You boss yourself, you bully yourself, and all of that. Now, how do you turn that into loving yourself? Like, how do you achieve that? So you can help our audience to achieve that too, you know? Sure.
Let me start by, it's a process. It's a skill. Self-love is a skill. What that means, it can be practiced. The more you practice it, the better you are. I was horrible at it when I started. Like, people look at me now and go, oh, look at Jonathan, just the way I compare myself to those who are further on the path than I am, right? All these people compare themselves to me, but you have to remember what day 1 was. So I remember the first time I tried to say, I love you in the mirror. And I learned it from Louise Hay, right? So I was listening to some Louise Hay teachings, and I thought, well, that's really cool. And I had already been coaching for some years at that point. I had been practicing yoga. I'd been teaching yoga. I had been coaching people. So I had done a boatload of work. And I thought, oh, I got this, and this is a new thing. It wasn't new; it's just new to me, to be clear. I'm like, oh, well, that's really interesting. And I go to the mirror, and I look myself in the eyes and go, Jonathan, and I look away, and the words don't come out.
Wow.
So that if you would have asked me the day before, I knew about the voices in my head, but if you would have asked me the day before if I had loved myself, I would have said, of course I do. It was then that I realized that there were deeper beliefs going on that I hadn't dealt with yet.
Right.
So then I began the work to figure out what was wrong with me. And what I discovered in my work, in my research, was that nothing was wrong with me.
Yeah.
And that's when everything changed. Everything, the first thing was just realizing nothing was wrong with me, and I could begin to accept myself as I am. I didn't have to model that person anymore.
Wow.
I didn't have to pretend to be that person anymore. I didn't have to pretend anything. I just began to be me, and it started slowly. You mentioned or asked, how can people start it? So a great way to start it is simply saying something kind to yourself in the mirror. And maybe it's not I love you, because that started off pretty bad for me. To be clear, I can do it now. I can say I love you. I can look at any mirror in the world, and even if it's a habit now, if I pass any mirror, I say something. I say, hey, Jonathan, I love you. Jonathan, you're looking good. Or Jonathan, nice. Hey. And it's very joyous. Not always that way, but it is now because I've been practicing, and it's a skill, and I'm much better at it. I suspect in a year, I'll be even better at it because I'll continue to practice. But you don't have to start there. You can find one thing you do like about yourself. Maybe you like your eyes. Maybe you like your smile. Maybe there's something else about you that you like. Or, if you're watching this, you can be thankful for your eyes. If you're listening to this, you can be thankful for your ears. If you did something well that day, celebrate. You don't have to ignore everything that went bad. Like my new evening routine is totally different. I look at myself and I tell myself I look great, and I do. And to be honest, sometimes there's a new wrinkle. This one came out a few months ago. This one here, and it's true. The first day it's like, oh, what's that? And then I remembered, right? So I have the same first reaction as everybody, and I remembered and I go, oh, wait a minute. And I said, wrinkle. Welcome to the family. Wow. And my whole body relaxed. Because it wasn't just affecting the wrinkle, it was affecting every part of me. So I look at myself and I pick things out and I say, welcome. I accept you and love you just the way you are. That's what I would say to a friend, isn't it? Isn't that what you would say to a friend?
Yeah.
If a friend goes, I have a new wrinkle, what would you say to them?
Okay.
You say you look great. You accept them. So then I offer gratitude for the great things that happened that day. I acknowledge the mistakes. Oh, you could have done that better, Jonathan. But I don't beat myself up anymore. I forgive myself. Every day I forgive myself. I have a daily forgiveness practice. I have the gratitude practice. And then I just say something kind to myself.
Wow, I'm so grateful that you're sharing this with us.
Yeah.
Wow. So do you feel like nowadays a lot of men practice self-love? Because I'm in the circle around myself with women, and we practice self-love a lot. But what about in the world of men?
So it's interesting. I have my main on-demand program that a lot of people go through. And in the studio, we have a yoga center here in Austin, Texas. And the truth is the program started there. I just did it live there in person. And the online program developed out of that. But I still do it in person every year. And this year, I did it on Zoom because obviously we were all isolated. And this was the first year. In the past, I think the first year there were 2 males, and the second year there was 1. And this year, I'd say there were about 40%.
Wow, that's
which
good.
I'm like, whoa,
right?
That's pretty cool. Now I don't know if it was just marketed differently or what happened. So I think it is much more practiced with women. I think in general, women are able to feel more. Now, it's not that women don't numb out. I've worked with many women who have come from a numb state.
Right.
And I'm not saying men don't feel. Some men feel.
Yep.
But I think in self-love, ultimately, when you get really down to it, it's about feeling the physical sensations inside of you and not running from them. Yeah. Because people aren't upset about things and situations. What happens is something will cause an unpleasant sensation in the body, or a pleasant one, right? Something happens, and in our body, we react, and it either feels pleasant or unpleasant. If it's unpleasant, we try and get rid of it by changing it. So we might change activities, or we might go drinking, or we might put on the TV, or a whole myriad of things. And what self-love is saying, I don't need to change anything. There's nothing wrong with the experience I'm having right now. It may be unpleasant, but that doesn't mean bad. Don't change it. This is kind of a sidetrack, but I think it's worth pointing out. I had a call, and someone was sharing that the goal, we are here in the sources that created us have told us that we are supposed to be happy and joyous. Right. And if we're not, then we need to figure out what's wrong with us and get out of our own way so we can experience the happiness and the joy that is our birthright. Right. Now, happiness and joy is your birthright, but so is sadness, so is anger, and so is fear, and all of it, because this great source that imbued us with happiness and joy also gave us sadness, also gave us anger, and this whole gamut of beautiful emotions. There are no negative emotions. We talk about, and I learned about positive and negative emotions. There are no negative emotions. Yeah. Not in my toolbook anymore. We don't have to change them. We need to accept them. And when we can accept it, that's when the world changes around us. And that's when it can dissipate. And then the joy arises from within you. The joy's in here already. So when you see yourself for how you are, you stop fighting with yourself and joy arises. So to really answer your question, I think more women have access to feeling than men do. Men were shut down at a young age, like don't cry, don't cry, man up.
Because you've been taught, right, that like men got to be tough and we can't cry.
Yeah,
we are the warrior.
Be strong.
Yeah.
And we just put that, when we give that be strong, we have this idea, we see the warriors and the warriors with armor, and then we put armor on. Yeah. And everyone says, I feel like I'm carrying this weight around with me. You are. It's armor, and it's heavy, and you put it on yourself, not blaming you. You did what you were taught to do, not blame. But you did put it on yourself because people told you to. And we get to take it off now. I mean, just picture yourself right now. Everyone, picture yourself. Just take off the armor and let it fall on the floor and see what that feels like. And see what arises from inside of you when you don't block it off with armor.
That's beautiful, Jonathan. Wow. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. So last question, what is the exciting new project that you're working on right now, and how our audience can reach out to you if they want to learn more about the self-love revolution?
Yeah, it's the Self-Love Revolution. You can go to selfloverevolution.com, and it's just so important. This is the most important skill we were never taught. It's filled with the concepts of emotional intelligence, which according to recent studies out of Harvard University, the pinnacle of education for many, but people consider it the pinnacle of education. What do they say? The number one predictor of future success is emotional intelligence. Yeah. And that's what self-love is about. This, unfortunately, in the education world, we're still not teaching it. We're not teaching emotional intelligence. And if we are, it's in this little side box of social emotional learning instead of in the science class, because it is science. This is science. So I want to invite you. I'm sorry you weren't taught in school. Neither was I. Yeah. But I want to invite you to join a community of people who are ready to live differently, to work differently, to show up and impact the world differently. If you found success the way it was defined for you and you're not happy, join me. Join us, and let's change this together.
Cool. So I will post the website link below in the description so that everyone can reach out to you and find some joy, find some love, right?
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jonathan, for being here with us, learning so much and have so much thing to think about. What do we really say to ourselves? So you bring out a good word, especially for yourself and for the next generation, for your son as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you.